Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is August 12th. Well, I walked through the garden yesterday and looked at my peonies. And what did I see? A whole lot of nothing. There's not much to see. The blooms are long gone, and the leaves are looking a little tired right now. It's hard to remember in August that these are the same plants that stopped me in my tracks in June. There was the pink one that smelled like my grandmother's face powder, and the white Japanese one I bought in my 20s that looks more like an anemone. And when they're in flower, I adore them both every time I walk by. That was my peonies in June, and this week, the brown-edged August version are also my peonies. I've divided peonies before, but I've learned to wait for September. August is a little early for that, because the tired peony leaves are still feeding the roots, gathering energy for next year's show. After I split them in a few weeks, the eyes, those pink buds on the crown, have to sit above the soil. Get the planting right, and they'll bring joy for 100 years or more. That's why peonies are the long memory of the garden. My grandmother planted peonies in a row behind her home in Huron Lake. And if no one moved them or tilled them under, those peonies are still there, gathering strength right now so they can make those fragrant blossoms next June for some little girl to find. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1827 that the English poet and engraver William Blake died in London. He was 69. For 10 years, he lived in Lambeth in a narrow house at number 13 Hercules Buildings, with a long garden running out behind it. At the end of that garden was a summer house, and one afternoon, his friend Thomas Butts came walking down the garden path and stumbled on William and his wife sitting naked in the summer house. They were reciting Paradise Lost in character, and the garden was standing in for Eden. William said, "Come in. It's only Adam and Eve." And the neighbors were scandalized when it happened more than once. In those same Lambeth years, in that same house, William engraved his 26 poems for a collection called The Songs of Experience. And one of those poems is called The Garden of Love. And it was on this day in 1884 that the English novelist and critic Frank Swinnerton was born north of London. He went into publishing young, and as an editor, he helped Aldous Huxley and Lytton Strachey into print. Frank wrote more than 50 books of his own, and he lived so long that he became the last man alive who had known H.G. Wells, John Galsworthy, and Arnold Bennett. In 1976, a reporter came to his house. Frank was 92, still writing a book a year. The reporter found him doing his own gardening, trimming hedges and digging ditches in between the shopping and the writing. Frank said, "Digging ditches enables you to work and think out stories at the same time." His last novel came out that same year. And 6 years later, he died at 98. And finally, it was on this day in 1931 that the American novelist and screenwriter William Goldman was born outside Chicago. He won 2 Academy Awards for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and All the President's Men. But the one book he wrote that people still adore is The Princess Bride. He wrote it because his daughters asked him to make them a story. And one wanted a story about a princess, and the other wanted a story about a bride. In The Princess Bride, he gave them both. Then he put himself into the book as the narrator. He said, "Like Buttercup, my heart was now a secret garden, and the walls were very high." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Rattan by Lulu, Lytle. Here's the thing about a rattan chair. It's made from a plant. Rattan is essentially a climbing palm, and it grows up through a tropical forest hunting for light. And that's why it comes off the plant in those long, bendable lengths. Lulu Lytle has loved rattan since she was a girl, when she saw a portrait of her grandfather painted in Cape Town and sitting in a wicker chair. As a young woman, Lulu started collecting old daybeds and chairs. And then in 2010, she learned that the last rattan workshop in Britain was closing for good. So she bought the machinery and moved it to Leicestershire, and then put weavers back to work. That's Lulu Lytle, and Rattan is the first book in decades to look at where this furniture comes from, and it actually shows up in history everywhere. Egyptian tombs, the Titanic's cafe, and a winter garden in Paris. But the detail that stayed with me is the one Lulu noticed in her own workshop. When rattan comes off the plant, it's covered in fine surface hairs, and someone has to singe those all the way down before it can be woven. It smells like mown hay. Rattan by Lulu Lytle, for the gardener who suspected all along that the furniture came from a plant. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1890 that Thomas Birch Freeman died in Accra on the Gold Coast. He was 80 years old. He'd been born in a Hampshire village in 1809. His mother, Amy, was an Englishwoman, and his father was an African man freed out of slavery who had taken the name Thomas Freeman. By his 20s, Thomas was head gardener at Orwell Park in Suffolk, running the grounds of a baronet's estate. Thomas had his own library, and he knew the Latin name of nearly every plant he met. When he became a Methodist, his employer let him go. So in 1838, Thomas sailed for West Africa as a missionary. His wife Elizabeth joined him and died within months of landing. His next wife, Lucinda, lived for only 9 months after the wedding. And most Englishmen died there too, within their first year or two. But Thomas lived there for more than 50 years. And in all that time, he never stopped being a gardener. One time, when he walked the forest road up to Kumasi to meet the king of the Ashanti, Thomas brought a telescope along so he could see the orchids hanging in the canopy over his head. And every now and then, he would pay a carrier to climb up and bring one down to him. There's an old story that Carl Linnaeus once fell to his knees at the sight of a furze bush or gorse in bloom. One morning, Thomas had a similar experience. He had just left the forest and looked across the valley when he spied a tree 30 feet high and covered in scarlet trumpets. Thomas said, "My feelings while gazing on this floral wonder were akin to those of Linnaeus when he knelt in rapture to gaze on the little furze bush in full blossom. I have never in my life seen such a combination of floral and foliaceous beauty. And I felt no hesitation in pronouncing this tree the triumph of flora. Sir William Hooker of Kew, who Thomas wrote to about West African plants, died on the 12th of August as well, 25 years before Thomas. Both men were 80. That was Thomas Birch Freeman, who died on this day in 1890. He built a house outside Accra and fed his family by market gardening. He wrote to Kew about West African plants until the end. Today's book was Rattan by Lulu Lytle. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.